lot, especially in the last few weeks. We're going to talk about the future of profile building. But before we talk about the future of profile building, we're also going to talk about the current state of profile building and what it means to really build a profile. I have a very interesting set of guests with me today. We have Jean Mary Cox, who is the Associate Vice President for St. Louis University. And she manages a lot of these international programs and initiatives and is at the helm of experiential learning and pioneering that for high school students. And so I could not think of a better perspective than with St. Louis. So welcome, Jean. Then, of course, we have Deepti, and Deepti is the head of career guidance at Lotus Valley International School. We also have a student of Deepti, Praneeth, who's joining us today because none of this is complete without having a student perspective because they are the ones who are ultimately experiencing it. So it's very important to get a student perspective in place. And then, of course, we have Ananya, we have Niharika, and we have Raj, and we have everyone else from TOC. So welcome. I have a quick question to ask all of you. What do you think is the size of the extracurricular or co-curricular activity market in India right now? Give it a guess. ECA market or co-curricular market in India. What do you think is the size of this market? Everyone's watching Shark Tank these days, so you know what I mean when I say size of the market. What is the size of this market right now? Any guesses? It is, as of 21, it was 5.8 billion US dollars. And now it's probably crossed 6 billion US dollars. And here I'm only talking about co-curriculars. I'm not even talking about the nuanced bits, but the number one activity in co-curricular for parents in India is debating, anything to do with public speaking, followed by STEM. And that's not surprising at all. I just wanted to put this out there because this is an important context to set that profile building as a space is increasing rapidly. But what we are also seeing is that as a result, it's going in the whole coaching center space. There is a very little context for most parents and students when they're making decisions because they're chasing the certificates and not the experience. And there are so many on offer right now that it's very important to understand what are the types and what is the reason why a student should choose an activity to begin with. So before, through the conversation, I'll keep pulling up some statistics. I'll show you a few slides that may be relevant and helpful to all of you, including categories of profile building, etc. But I want to start with you, Deepti, and thank you for joining us. Deepti, as a career counselor, I do not envy your position at all because you must be inundated right now with the kind of options, okay, that the sheer number of options that come your way or come your students' way. So, Deepti, tell us a little bit about how, as a counselor, do you sort through that? What is it that you look for? And what do you think is the need of the hour? And take us through a little bit of Lotus Valley's journey into integrating profile building so mainstream in your experience.
So thank you, Bhakti, for the question. So to begin with, I would not call myself as a career counselor because I'm not. So I have by force come into the profession of career counseling as I'm the vice principal there and I'm required to do career counseling. But I have my career counselor, Vibhuti, with me on the panel today. So when I talk about Lotus Valley, there is a big number of students who apply for foreign universities. So we are a school with 4,800 children. And if I only talk about class 12, so we would have about 300 children every year passing out from our school. Among that, there is a handful of number of students who apply to various countries and to various universities. So if I look at the US market, only if this US or maybe Canada or Australia, where our children apply, where a portfolio is required for a student, there is a lot of confusion in the minds of parents, in the minds of children and the teachers. So all of our stakeholders are somewhere confused, which is where my career counseling department, Vibhuti, comes into play, and she helps in defining and mapping between the child's strength and what is available in the market. So luckily, we have a very, very active community service Interact Club running with us, and we do hands-on experiential projects with our children in community service. And to begin with, we are also the Rotary International winners. So there are actual hands-on experiments that we ask our children to involve into. So there is a era of services that are provided to a child, but maybe a child may not be interested into one particular activity when it comes to community service. So we give them options into various fields. Then what Vibhuti does is she also makes sure that all our children who are high school graders should do something called Industry Insight program. So that's the second thing that we actively do. And the Industry Insight program is basically where our parents, our own parents who are in the position of vice president or maybe a president of a company or maybe the owners of a fashion brand like Lakshita, so they take in children for about 14 to 15 days or sometimes to a month and give them real experience of the work that is required in that particular field. So many of our children, when they experience this, they realize, oh, probably this is not something that we would like to do for rest of our lives. So that's where the career shift happens. And
Yeah.
then Vibhuti comes in and she shortlists the courses, then comes the shortlisting of the universities. So there is a very involved partnership which happens between the child, parent, and the counseling department. That's what I would like to tell about Lotus Valley right now.
No, that's very helpful. What I hear you say is that there is a structure, there's a method to the madness that you've put in place, which I think is the case for a few schools in the country. And there's increasingly a recognition of the fact that it cannot be a by the way. It has to be very carefully planned and integrated. Experiential learning, profile building has to be integrated in the experience of the student. um I hear you, and I feel like when at the same time parents and students are choosing these activities, right? And that's where, and Ashma, I'd love to get your view as well. you know and then Jean, I want the university perspective. There is a difference between profile building and skill building, but is there? And can we genuinely, realistically get parents to understand that there is a difference between skill building and profile building? So as a counselor, Ashma, if you could kind of go first, and then Deepti, you could tell us what your view is. How do you educate parents about the difference, and what is it that you're going to be able to do as a school to do that?
I think, hi Deepti. I'm a career counselor with Legacy School in Bangalore. So just to say, it's the first level of convincing happens at the SLT level, to make them understand that students need to really do something outside of their curriculum, outside of their classrooms, outside of their academic coursework, because that's very important. Even to do well in your academics, you really need to build certain skills to understand, which is, understanding what is research. Nowadays, everybody wants to do research. That's the hot topic buzzword for getting into Ivy League universities. Oh, if you have written a paper, you can get into an Ivy League university. But understanding what is research, even PhD people are struggling to do research on so many topics, to just
Yeah.
understand the basics of what it really means and what are the skills that you really require, like authenticating the information, researching, checking out, citation, all of these things. So students don't understand all of these things. I think it's very important to basically involve not just teachers, but also people who work in librarians, because they are so well versed with the resources where they are available and how you can really research all of these topics. And then, of course, yes, parents. And, you rightly said, Deepti, that you need to include industry inside programs. And the struggle is that a lot of times parents are not upfront in, getting involved also.
Yeah.
probably because of time constraints, or probably, and sometimes I've tried, VCs of companies, I've said, could you come and deliver a session on STEM areas, and they're not able to build that connect with students. So it's not just about inviting parents, it's also about inviting the right set of people to who can connect with students and deliver the message in the right format, because profile building and skill building are just buzzwords, but what do you really mean
Yeah.
out of it is very important.
Absolutely.
Bhakti,
Yeah, go ahead.
because I think it's also important for parents to understand the university perspective and how we're reviewing applicants. I train a lot of young admission counselors in my role, right? And I train them to look for profile, not skills. We're
Yeah.
not looking for stackable things that are just little things that might have one subject matter. What we are looking for, I always say, is for the applicant to come alive and to come off the page so that you see the whole story, you see the whole person, you see the well-roundedness, the experiences, the experiential learning, and it's that breadth of profile or resume that we are
Yeah.
really looking for to make a student stand out and be different than anybody else that is stacking a bunch of different skills on a list.
So I
You know,
agree what Ashima said, because
okay.
it's not easy, Ashima, to get on parents on board for taking in children for industry insight. So this is 8 years back when we started this program. And believe me, even I did not have a lot of conviction of sending children to workplace, because safety, security, and Lotus Valley is paranoid about safety aspects, and children go all over the campus when they are left onto their own. So what we did was, initially many parents did not volunteer for it. So when I do orientation of each grade, I ask the parents, do you want your child to go for industry insight program when they come into senior classes? And most of the parents are willing to do that. So the contradictory question is, how many of you are volunteering to take in children?
Hmm.
So that's when this exchange of ideas, conversations, orientations, dialogues. So believe me, Ashima, how I have built it is because many of these aspirants who are actually the VPs and the heads of the institution or corporates want their children to go to Ivy Leagues. So I rope in them. I said, first you take 10 children to your company, give them an experience. And when your child comes to class 12th, we are there to help him. So it's a kind of a bargain which happens. And I also say we are spoiled for choices. So we do have parent database, which is very elaborate and which is also very diverse.
Yeah.
We have hotels, we have hospitals, we have pharmaceutical companies. So there's a lot of variety which is also offered to a child. But coming on to Bhakti's question, and very valid question, I'll tell you, most of the children are very confused when it comes to profile building. उनको लगता है सब कुछ कर लो. Have everything on the application, 600 words, 500 words, write everything there, whether it is research paper, leadership position, work experience, community service, olympiads, and toppers into SAT scores and academic toppers. So this is, and thankfully me and Jean have this conversation multiple times, and I have heard from a lot of universities, they are not looking at everything. They're looking at an individual, consistency, a journey, a child who has a commitment towards a particular thing, probably. And that has helped. To give you an example, the audience who is listening to me, probably this will make sense. What we do comparatives. So when Pranit was coming to me, Pranit said, ma'am, taking his example because he's in on panel and he can take it up from here. He says, ma'am, what is it that I put on my application which will look good? So what we said is Pranit is now associated for last 3 years with a NGO which works with acid survivors. So it's Chow Foundation. I'm sure you guys would have heard that movie Chapak, in which we had
Yeah.
collaborated with Chow Foundation. So he has been consistently for these many years working with them. But before he realized this is my calling, he was a part of my Interact Love for about 3 years. So he tried his hands on to all activities. So Bhakti, what we do is we start as early as grade 6. When it's skill is, when we talk about skill, we do it in the middle grade. We give
Okay.
exposure to our children for multiple things. By taking this example of Pranit, so he went to a lot of NGOs, have experience of working with special needs, had experience with working with old age people. But finally, when he went to Chao, he found this is where I would like to, give my time to or commit
Yeah.
to. This is my place. So this kind of exposure, not in high school, is what his child required. By then, he should be sure that I need to work upon this domain. So
Absolutely.
this
No,
is
that is
what
very useful, Deepti. But I want to, sorry, I want to jump in here because this is actually exactly where I want Jean to pipe in. Because Jean, you mentioned something very interesting, and um, uh, taking from the conversations that you have with Deepti, and you are also partnered with Lotus Valley, which is a sign of a very progressive thought process between both institutions, because university and school partnerships are not as common in India as they should be. And so, Jean, as someone who's at the helm of something like this with SLU, and sorry, we call St. Louis University SLU out of love. So everyone call it SLU. So, Jean, I want to understand from you that as someone who's been in the space of admission, international admissions and recruitment, what are the specific skills that you're looking at when you say you want to see an applicant come alive? What does that mean? Because you have a room full of counselors here, some who work with schools and some who work independently. So what does it mean for them when you say we want to see an applicant come alive through their skills and experiences?
For us, that usually is through experiences or experiential learning, right? So the things that happen outside of the classroom, the things that they're involved in, just like we were talking about with Pranit. So taking those specific things that meet the passion that a student has, and then exploring that and getting life skills along the way. So for us, in our applicant pool, we were seeing a gap there, right? We were seeing a lot of students that listed a lot of skills and a
Yeah.
good pocket of students that had real resumes and portfolios that were outstanding. But we saw a gap, and we saw very promising students, but they didn't have all of those experiences that were put together to tell their full story, where we knew as a whole person that they would be successful. And we stand by the fact that we're not going to admit an applicant that we don't think that we can retain and graduate. So we just needed more from our students when they were going through the application process. And we needed more for our enrolled students so that when they were applying to jobs, we knew without a shadow of a doubt they were going to be wildly successful because of all the experiences that they had on campus. So we thought of a lot of different means. We talked to a lot of different partners along the way, but we ended up launching something called SLU EXP, which is an experiential learning program on campus, and one of the core things that we are partnered with Lotus Valley on. What this did for us and what SLU EXP is an experiential learning program and platform that students from around the world can join so that they can do virtual internships, competitions, experiences, and really take part in things that they may not have had access to. Because not everyone has the same access that Deepti has for students at Lotus Valley,
Yeah.
right? Some students aren't going to have that wonderful backbone of counseling and school support. Others just aren't going to find their way in their journey. And this really gave access to those students. And for students that are at Lotus Valley, it helps them fine tune specific things that they may not have done before. They might find that they have a passion for healthcare and take a CPR course to expand their knowledge there. And that's been helpful along the way. I mean, as a Catholic Jesuit institution, I'll tell you, it has met our mission in ways that we did not know possible before entering that relationship, because we are able to work with students to give experiences to make them successful applicants to us, but make them successful humans out into the world during their time with us and after. It's really been a rewarding thing, I think, for students, for schools, and for SLU at the same time.
As someone who's actually seen SLU EXP in action. I think it's fascinating. I know there are universities, many universities in the world that are trying to make strides in the space of experiential learning, which is great. What I think was particularly interesting was that EXP is tech driven in that sense, that it is accessible. There's no boundary of, you have to come to the US or you have to have a synchronous sort of an experience. So I think that has been very interesting, and the diversity of experiences, like you mentioned, competitions and virtual internships. That's very interesting. But Jean, is this something that, I mean, because you partnered with schools, but we have students whose schools you may not be partnered with. For example, you have counselors, independent counselors. How would they engage with a SLU or, I mean, especially SLU, because we're talking to you right now.
There's different levels of engagement with
Mm.
EXP is the short answer to that. It is an open platform. We don't want access just for students that live in one place or that plan to definitely enroll in SLU. If a student is interested in participating in SLU EXP, we welcome them to do so, starting from young ages to really start stacking their experiences and finding their passion through if they enroll in SLU or not. Those are experiences that are offered to them. So any student could go onto SLU's webpage or look for SLU EXP and sign up. It's a little different relationship that we have with Lotus Valley because we have entered more of an agreement and just have such a wonderful working relationship with each other.
Yeah.
We thought, how can we take what we have now that we are offering around the world and really take that to the next level? Can we offer more? Can we do deeper seminars, counseling, have a relationship together where we're saying, here's something that we're seeing, and Deepti is saying, you know what? I would love to have someone come in and talk about this, and we are happy to do that. Or, you know what? I'd like a summer program in this type of discipline where students are exposed to the US culture at that time while still building a portfolio. And we will say, okay, what about? How can we help develop this and make it happen? So it's just I would say the basic level is for any student or anybody, for a counselor to keep stacking different experiences and credentials to learn more and maybe then bring that to their students. But if it is something that a school really appreciates or knows that there's a need for their students, we are interested in seeing how we can deepen that relationship too.
Yeah, that's very helpful.
What did I miss?
So no, what did she miss, Deepti?
Okay.
Jean's
So, yeah,
asking if
thank
she
you,
missed
Jean.
something.
Because I must appreciate this Bhakti here. See, a lot of children go for summer programs, and I'm sure Ashima and other counselors would know that it's a very common thing for school children to go for summer programs. But mostly in India, even in Indian universities, you find STEM related courses, or maybe AI related, or maybe medicine related. So, the best part about St. Louis University is they are doing things differently. I don't know why, but they are open to all the suggestions which they have received from us. And we, for the first time, are probably no universities, and I can claim this, Jean, no university till by far has done this kind of a summer program, which is exclusively for visual arts and sports. It's a sports clinic because they have a great program at sports. In fact, we began with doing workshops. So I have 39 sports coaches with me at our school, and we do a lot of sports activities. All of them were trained by the faculty of SLU at the first level. And that's where this idea was originated, that we would like to go to US campus. Our children would be going there, and along with the students of SLU would have at least a week sports clinic kind of a thing, and then they are able to pull it off. That's a great thing for us.
That's awesome.
And believe me, our parents, our children are so excited because they say, see, in a classroom you have all kind of children.
Yeah.
There are children who are academically well driven and they have good grades, so they always get more opportunities. But when it comes to art, theater, skills, sports, what Bhakti was saying, co-curricular, there is no university which is giving them a platform. but SLU did it for us. And probably in the coming summers, we will be visiting to, our children would be going to their campus and have the experience, real-time experience of going to a museum and displaying their art pieces. What else would they want at an age of about 14, 15 years? I would say 16 years old girl, for her, this whole experience of the feeling of exhibiting her work at a US
Yeah.
university is immense. So that feeling is very important. To make them feel good about their skill is very important for us.
Yeah, very
Absolutely.
good.
And that's pretty phenomenal. I think the fact that this last bit really caught my attention, that you may have a student displaying her artwork at the museum. And I really want to jump to Praneeth as well now, because I know that Praneeth, you have experienced some of these activities. But before I do that, I'm going to share my screen because, for all the talk of skill building, let's pin down what those skills are, right? So I'm going to quickly share my screen and show you that based on the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs report, if you know me, you know that it is my one true love. And so if you look at this sheet, if you look at this, yeah. So these are some of the top skills according to the World Economic Forum. And what is interesting is, of course, this is not in order of what they've said, but analytical skills are actually number one on every employer's list. So I'll just give you a background of the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs report. It is a report that comes out every year, and it comes out around between Jan and March, every year. And it's a 250 plus page report. And what they do is they run a survey with over 900 companies globally, and these are large, organizations, the Googles and Metas of the world. And what they really ask is a survey about what is it that you are looking for in the future workforce, right? So when they say future, they're saying, okay, 8 years from now. So they're right now, 5 years from now, they're talking about 2030. So they've surveyed these companies, over 800 of them, who actually employ over 11 million people globally. And they've said, okay, what do you look for as an employer? And what do you think is going to be required in another 5 years? And these are the skills. And for the first time ever last year, they actually introduced a skill segment. Before that, in this report, there was never a skill segment. So that just goes to show that skills are now front and center in the workforce and industry conversation. And that is why counselors, when you hear this coming up again and again, there's a reason that there is a huge flurry of activity around building skills fast. And the reason is not because someone suddenly woke up one day and said, let's start a business. It's actually a requirement globally. And that's why it is filtering down to grassroots, which is essentially high schools, because it starts from there, from middle school. That is the reason you're seeing the flurry of activity in the skill building segment of education. And before I go to Pranit, I just want you to check this out. Some of you may have seen it. Okay. These are some of the careers of the present. Okay. And the reason I'm showing this to you also is because these are the kind of careers that already exist. And so when you're stuck in archaic conversations with parents who want to do medicine and engineering and etc., the world is moving way beyond it and very, very quickly. So organ creation, metaverse planning, biofilm installing, makeshift engineering, autonomous car mechanics. I mean, these are real careers that exist. We'll talk about these in detail some other day, but I just wanted to give you context that why is this conversation so important and why are you hearing us talk about skill building? Pranit, I want to come to you because you are the horse's mouth. All right. We want to hear your experience from you. Tell us, what is it that you did? First of all, introduce yourself. Tell us what you're doing right now, and what made you choose what you did, and what do you want to do with your life?
All right, so I'm Praneeth Kumar. I'm a student at Lotus Valley International School, Noida. I'm currently in grade 12 and I want to study computer science.
Shocking. Sorry, I'm just kidding. It's just like everybody wants to study computer science, but that's awesome. That's awesome. So Pranit, tell us, what did you do? Like, what was it that you did in terms of your profile building?
So, well, in profile building, I was initially unsure of what to do because what a lot of people do is just do things to get into universities, not what they actually want. I didn't want to take that path. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. For example, I was heavily involved in community service because I really liked helping people. And whenever I look for opportunities, for example, internships, they weren't because they would add to my profile. It was because I wanted to learn. I said I'm interested in studying computer science, and computer science is a big field.
Yeah.
I want to explore data analysis, artificial intelligence, policies uh, for tech, and I think that is something that we can only get when we have hands-on experience, and that's kind of what I gained with the internship that I had with SLU and Accelerate.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about, so you did a virtual internship. And the reason I'm asking is, typically internships are in traditional mindsets are, okay, you're in an organization, you're a tea coffee runner, you'll get Xeroxes done, you'll get copies done, you're just there, right? Um, but a virtual internship is a completely different experience. So tell us a little bit about what that entailed. What can a student expect when they're doing a virtual internship?
So in a virtual internship, obviously you have a lot more flexibility of how you want to work. Um, the internship that I had done had people from all over the world. There were people from India, from the US, from Nigeria. And so since we were all in different time zones, the benefit was that we can connect anytime online, have a discussion, work towards our goal, which was analyzing data for Facebook ad campaigns. And then that was great. And then I just had my final exams coming up then. If I had to go to a particular work site, doing this internship would be extremely, extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Then because it was online and it was flexible, so I was able to learn a lot and enhance my skills.
You've touched on a very important and a pertinent point, and I'm going to also take a breather here to take any audience questions because, this is not a one-way tirade for us. But the whole concept of virtual internships or online experiences, I do see parents or counselors may be skeptical about some of these, thinking that are they really effective? But I personally feel it's a lot like the work from home concept as well, that there is a lot, the world is online. The world runs online. So it questioning online experiences is quite futile in the world that we now live in. In fact, it is early initiation into the remote world of work as well, and remote collaborations, because that's what it's all about. Most of us are working with teams who are sitting in different parts of the world and different time zones. And that early initiation into cross-cultural sensitivities, working with different teams, different time zones, those skills are actually critical. So while you're getting that certificate, and the certificate does not mention that you work with X number of people from Y number of countries through Y number of time zones, but the fact is that is the real learning in that experience. So with that, I'll just take a pause, and I want to understand if anyone has any questions so far about what we've discussed or anything to do with profile building. Any questions, any comments, any inputs, anything that anyone would like to share? And if we have extremely shy folks
Hi,
here.
Bhakti, Aparna here.
Hey, Aparna. Hi. Aparna, just introduce yourself now.
Yes, sure. Hi, I'm Aparna Chandrasekharan. I'm head of college placements at 10X International School. We are an IB curriculum school in Bangalore. We are a sister school of all the Indus group of schools. They in Bangalore, Pune, Hyderabad, Belgaum. So we're a sister school of theirs. 10X is a new concept that's been initiated by the Indus schools. Bangalore is the first one. We're only a high school. We're modeled on the Bronx High School for Science in the US. So we're only a high school offering 9 to 12th. And we've started a new branch for 10X in Mysore as well. So that's us. I just had a quick question about how students from high school could be part of such internships and Do they? I'm sorry, I joined a little late, so I might have missed this. So I'm sorry if I'm asking this question again or it's been already covered. But how can high school students join a program like this? And what are you looking for in terms of not profile of a student, but what you're looking to see? What kind of student are you looking to have as part of a program like this? So if it's already been covered, my apologies. I can connect with someone else to ask the answers. But if it hasn't, then I'd love to have the answers. Thank you so much.
Aparna, revision is always key to final outcomes. So let's revisit this. I think it'll also help us delve a little bit deeper into the process of application and selection. So Jean, over to you.
This is a perfect clarification, so thank you for bringing that up. And I think there is some skepticism sometimes. I find skepticism sometimes from our students in the US that this really is a program that any student can participate in at no charge to them. So students would go and go to the EXP site, which Ananya has kindly dropped into the chat, and can sign up and participate at that time. They would fill out some information there, and then they've got really a roadmap and journey of different experiences that might meet their passions or their learning that they are wanting that they can participate in. So that's kind of step one to everything. It is open to students. It's open to students right now that they could join today and start participating in different experiences. Also, kind of a secondary to that, if you are at a school, which it sounds like you may be, that is interested in developing an even further relationship or to see how SLU EXP can partner more and how St. Louis University in your high school can partner more, we would love to have that discussion too. And really the perfect person to start that with is Raj, who's on our call today. And he can give some basics on that and also start a conversation with your school, with us, so that we can, much like we did with Lotus Valley, find out what you're really looking for and where SLU may fit with that. We don't want to come to any high school or any school counselor and say, this is what you need, because that's not who we are. Who we are is making young people successful and trying to find the right partnerships along the way so that that's mutually beneficial for us and our mission and for our students. So we're interested in what you're looking for, how that meets what we may have, and how we can assist in that journey.
Two key takeaways, Aparna and everyone, is one is if students want to sign up for the internships, it's free at this point. They can log into the link that I have shared on the chat and they can sign up for internships they're interested in. At the institutional level for schools, if they're interested in crafting something specifically for the school based on your needs, that customization happens through an institutional partnership. The SLU is already partnered with a few schools in India, and it's actually one of the few universities globally that is partnered with schools in India and is executing partnerships and not just signing MOUs and putting them away. So I know that because I've seen it.
And we have a great
Yeah.
team to work with. Let me say that too, because some of these folks are on this call and those are folks that you would be having conversations with. I mentioned Raj, who really helps head our EXP efforts and does a lot of on the ground work with some wonderful leadership and kind of a lot of the creative mind that set up EXP, Ananya. And then Naharika is on ground with me every day at St. Louis University, and we really all work together as a cohesive team to bring all of these things to life with lots of other individuals that assist along the way too, and creative minds that join us to really help lead a lot of efforts like Bhakti and everything that you have given to make all of these things possible too.
Thank you, Jean.
And
Ashima,
Jean,
you've raised your hand.
You
Go
are
ahead.
forgetting you are also the IC3 host this year. So those who want to connect, they can connect with SLU for the IC3. They're hosting their first university.
Oh yeah, Madrid.
Yes.
Oh
Join us
yeah.
in Madrid.
Oh yeah. So by the way, fun fact, St. Louis
Thank
also
you,
has a
Jessica.
campus in Madrid. Okay. And so this year, for the first time, the IC3 is doing a forum in Madrid, and it's actually being hosted at SLU Madrid's university campus, which is usually, that's not the case. It's usually hosted at schools, as you all know. So congratulations on the Madrid Forum, Jean. That should be phenomenal.
Very excited, and what a good point. Thank you, Deepti. When we talk about partnership too, we're not simply talking about our St. Louis campus. We do have a full degree granting campus with many bachelor's programs, some master's programs in Madrid, Spain. So
Yeah,
really
so
that three-stop global experience is very possible. And that's a campus that we talk to many different high schools about summer programs and experiences and short-term travel. Most of our undergraduates in St. Louis will go to Madrid and have some type of experience, largely because we make that possible for them. We believe in global education, if you can't tell that already. And one of those things that we back is the fact that any student on our campus, regardless of major, will have the opportunity to study in Madrid should they choose so, and we will help fund that journey too.
Yeah.
So we really look at ways to get our students the experiences to make them global citizens of the world and successful. But yes, please find out more about that in Madrid too, if you could join IC3.
For sure. And I can vouch for the fact that the Madrid campus is amazing. I've been there, I've experienced it, I've met their students. Their students are from everywhere. And I think even just from a partnerships perspective and the Europe, interest in Europe for students increasingly as a study destination, Madrid is a phenomenal option. But Ashima, you had your hand up for a while. Your hand must be hurting. Go ahead.
All right, thank you so much, Jean. And I definitely am going to get in touch with you for these programs. But one question that I'm asked.
Introduce yourself.
Sorry, I'm Ashima. I'm from Legacy School, Bangalore. I'm heading their career and college guidance counseling. And we actually do counseling curriculum starting 8th grade onwards, and we're looking at introducing it to 6th and 7th grade as well. In the age of AI, how do experiential learning programs effectively evaluate or assess the skills gained through virtual internships, especially in the world increasingly driven by AI and ChatGPT and so many other things where many tasks are automated and human input seems secondary? How do you really evaluate that?
Very good question, and a really hot topic in admission offices, I think, around the world right now. And this ages me, but I am going to say it is not difficult for admission offices to see AI generated work and to see that in the evaluation process. Just like 20 years ago, it was not difficult for me to see when a parent wrote a student's resume and essay and everything else, right? It's not much different than that. It's a different guise on everything. But when we actually look through materials and people wonder, okay, is everything AI generated now? And some things are, and some things should be AI generated, right? Some of our processes need to become AI generated. It's not a bad thing, but as far as kind of not falsifying, but the student not doing the work, it's still real evident when you're reading 20, 30,000 applications a year. You pick up on the notes that make the difference from AI to a student that has taken their time and passion and made a list. We do a lot of workshops for resume building, for kind of that whole portfolio and what students need to do. And we tell students very early on, make a spreadsheet, right? You're going to forget your experiences along the way, more than likely. Start early, start in middle school, start charting all of those down. And that breadth of detail that they're able to provide then when really getting all of those skills into one portfolio, admission offices see the difference in that. And the other advice we give students often with that is if all else fails, ask your mom, right? No one can brag about you or knows more of what you did at all times than your mother, more than likely. So also have her go through that spreadsheet and add in as much as possible.
That's true.
And Anya?
I just wanted to add more context, even at the internship level. As Pranit mentioned, they work in smaller groups, and each group is actually monitored and managed by our own team members who do oversee what the activity is. And at the end of the internship, the certificate or actual completion of it depends on a 360 feedback report, which includes feedback and reflection from oneself, your peers assessing you, your manager assessing you. So hence, to your point, we actually haven't seen a lot of interns misuse any such tools. In fact, we've seen them very engaged in what is going on, and that is, I think, also a benefit of the fact that it's really overseen by our own teams.
So it's rightly
Pa-
put forth by Bhakti that it's not a runner's job. It's actually an internship, even though it is
Yeah.
virtual. Right? Great.
Yeah,
Good to
and
know.
it's
Thank
it's very
you.
collaborative as well. And fun fact, because we are all people here, Ananya and Niharika both. So Niharika is a student at SLU, and she also assists in the office and at SLU's recruitment office. So she's the first hand, she has first hand experience. And Ananya graduated from Ashoka, is currently, I'm very sorry, Ananya, I'm just going to embarrass you now. She's currently pursuing her master's at Oxford. I just had to flex that. It's very important because, I mean, you're so phenomenal. Like, I had to say it. Like, I'm just really proud of you for doing that. So, and so you have minds, young minds, bright minds who are working with experienced folks like Jean and others to create such experiences and track them, which I think is a USP that cannot be overlooked. It is very important. With that being said, I'm just also going to quickly share my screen. And whoever has joined us a little bit later, we'll take more questions. We've been taking questions. We'll take a few more questions in a bit. But I wanted to quickly share my screen. Sorry, I was just on LinkedIn, and so you're seeing that. But yeah, here you go. So this is important for counselors, just from a categorization and theory perspective. I've taken a stab at it because when you're trying to make sense of the very vast world of skill and profile building, it's important to start making sense of it, categorizing it, and sort of documenting it. So that's something that I've been doing. And so these are some of the types of pre-college experiences across academic, skill-based, industry, and social impact. And you'll see that when you start categorizing them, even through your college guidance process, and getting students to look at experiences from these buckets perspective, it may help to make sure that the matrix makes sense, the choice matrix makes sense, right? So this is something that I wanted to quickly share. You feel free to take a screenshot. If you want, I can send these slides as well. And very quickly, I also wanted to talk about some of the key factors that are important when it comes to students and parents and families when it comes to choosing pre-college programs. So there are four. One, of course, it starts with course and college aspirations. Second is also approach to learning. I think course and college aspirations are pretty self-explanatory, but I'll still talk a little bit about that. So, for example, especially towards grades 11, right, or sometimes even 9 and 10, if students are extremely clear and sure about what they want to study, if they're clear about what they want to study, then their choices in pre-college experiences can be veered in that direction, because universities look for demonstrated interest in not just the university, but also the course that they're choosing. The second aspect is college aspirations, because if there are colleges that students are interested in that actually offer pre-college programs, it's always a good idea to see if students can apply for their pre-college programs, because that is the ultimate demonstrated interest for a university. I mean, a large part of it, especially when it comes to the college choice, right? The second is approach to learning. We talk about learning styles, we talk about multiple intelligences, but how does that apply in the choice of profile building? And therefore, students who are kinesthetic, who I think most students are kinesthetic, and I very rarely come across students who would say no to experiential learning. but at the same time, students who are highly kinesthetic or really want to do hands-on stuff, there are different choices for them versus students who thrive in more social scenarios and peer-to-peer learning, where summer programs may make a lot of sense, and then maybe not online but in person. And then you talk about say virtual internships, right? Virtual internships may be a great fit for students who work well by themselves but also in groups, and are also either already self-motivated or need a little bit of self-motivation, because that's also the time to build that. Because when you're doing something online or by yourself, you're pretty much doing things on your own to some extent. Your self-motivation is very important. So approach to learning, whether you're visual, auditory, kinesthetic, or whatever is your intelligence style, also has a role to play in the kind of choice you make for profile building. Finances, critical. Parents, do not have to, it's bad enough that colleges are expensive. College education is expensive. I don't think profile building needs to be so expensive that you have to sell something for it, right? Like, I mean, let's be real, and let's be also empathetic and understanding of financial situations across the spectrum. And that plays a huge role. And there's a whole diversity of programs that can do justice. It's not that the more expensive it is, the better a program is. I have to tell you that there are programs right now that are selling for lakhs and lakhs. Um, and if you're in the space, you know what I'm saying. But I'm saying is that if everyone cannot afford it, and it's okay. And therefore, that FOMO that's being built around, you have to do research, you have to, no, nobody has to do anything. It's about what they want to do and what they can do. And last but not the least, of course, location. So with that, I will again take a pause, and just you can take a quick screenshot of this next one as well if you want. Some of the popular and emerging pre-college experiences, again, categorize them into summer and winter programs, types, internships, community service, and research and entrepreneurship. So these are a few. I thought I'll infuse this conversation with a little bit of that theory that may help you build your profile building curriculum if you're building one. Yes. Okay. Now I'm very conscious of the time. We have 6 minutes to go. So last parting words, and then we'll also take some questions. So Jean, if there is one thing that you could tell counselors right now who are sitting here, and not just the school counselors, but also the independent counselors, on what is the university perspective, not just you, but because you're in the space for so long and you're integrated in the US higher ed system, in your view, what are US universities really looking for? And is profile building really that important for college admissions? Or do you think it plays a greater role after a student has actually been admitted to the university from a skill and a thrive perspective? So can you share a little bit about that?
Well, thank you, Bhakti, for asking. I think it plays a role across the student's entire journey. As Deepti said, probably starting the experiences in middle school and the journey in middle school and through employment, right? This is lifelong learning that we're talking about that builds an entire portfolio so that a student can gain admission into the universities that they're looking for and have an edge up from other students that might not be able to tell that story or paint that picture. But then we'll also follow them throughout their journey so that they are placed in the jobs that they're wanting because they've had the experience that they've wanted. I recently had advice from a mentor when I was asking about furthering my own career, and it was impactful to me, and I think it really aligns to our discussion today. He told me, don't let someone else say that they could do the things that you have already done. Don't let them paint the picture of a story that you have already accomplished. Students should collect skills and fill their passion and purpose, but they have to be able to tell their story, right? And how they would stand out and how they are the most qualified based on the experiences that they've had along their journey and path. And we need to teach them to be kind, but not to be humble along that journey.
Very wise words, Jean. Thank you for that. Deepti, from your perspective, you have been on the journey, you continue to be on the journey as a part of the leadership and management of your school. What is very interesting to me is how you are extremely involved with guidance in your own school, which is not very common. Usually we see that it's the career counselors, it's their job that ends there. Most schools don't even have a counseling budget. Okay. Departments don't have a counseling budget. Okay. Um, so in your view, what is the management's role in driving the whole profile building and skill building narrative in the school? If you can summarize that for us through your experience in a few minutes.
Sure. So I do understand what you're saying, because most of the schools either don't have a counselor or the counselor is treated as a substitution teacher, especially when it comes to a CBSE school like ours. IB, I know the KRAs and the structure, the operation of the career counseling department is very streamlined. But when it comes to a CBSE school, that's not the case. So yes, as a management heads of the institution, we should be mindful of when we are hiring the resource. So if I know what is the need of my children, of the parent, the expectations of our parents, I will mindfully appoint a person. So either it is the counselor or the career counselor. So getting the right person in the system is very important, which is again a very difficult task, Bhakti. You don't get right people. I might have wonderful ideas. I would have traveled, went to a lot of places, know how to set up a counseling cell, but getting a right person into the department is very important, because you need to be very genuine.
Yeah.
As you said, I can't be involved into the process of career counseling. So the person I'm hiring has to be the genuine person. She should know her work. She should be able to identify the strengths of the children and then guide them. And the last part, the documentation, that is also very, very important aspect
Yeah.
of a career counselor. So equity to be maintained, helping each child without biasness, all that is a role of a leader to understand and then probably structure the whole thing. And
Yeah.
another thing is, please, I know the counselors would feel this is something which most schools aren't doing, but we start career counseling at grade 3. So Vibhuti is there. When she joined us, she was also like, "Are you crazy? Who does career counseling in grade 3?" I said, "We do it." So it's a very basic thing that we can begin at school. We can always align our summer homeworks, especially by doing research, by giving them a career. Any child can pick up a career and do a bit of research, give them a framework, a guideline, and every year, probably in the primary wing, they would be acquainted to at least the vocabulary which is required. So by the time they are with the middle school, they will understand when the career counselor goes to their class. Otherwise, it would be a very difficult it would not be easy for them to comprehend it all. So we start
No,
at
abs.
grade 3.
This is very interesting because I think for all the arguments, and this is a huge conversation on its own. When is the right time to start the process of career conversations? And there's, I mean, so far even grade 6 has raised eyebrows, and you're saying grade 3 that has dropped jaws, I'm sure, and therefore, but it's very interesting. So I think instead of going by just the nomenclature of career guidance, I think it's more about future orientation, is more sort of, and context to why you're learning what you're learning. How does it marry with the world around you? I feel like that makes more sense. And then when kids who are like 2 years old or 3 years old don't even eat their food without watching something on their iPad, right? I've seen that. And so when they're so open to it, Jean is like, yeah, yeah, Jean, first hand experience. So when you have students, when you have, this generation is already on tech at all times from a very young age. Let's not pretend and be ostriches and bury our head in the sand and say, oh, it doesn't exist. It exists. It's there. This is what it is. How are you now going to leverage it for better outcomes is the question. And say, okay, if they are into tech and they are searching the internet and they are on social media at some point, maybe put it to good use and start making them do research in small areas of like, what does it mean to be a I don't know, give me a career. I'm running
I'll tell you
blanks.
what
What does it mean to be a career counselor, for example? Yeah.
So this parent who was working in a hospital and the child got this homework. So he said, Mama, I want to go to your office one day and I want to see what are professions and what do doctors do and why there is so much of variety. Like you are a gynae, Papa is a surgeon. What else happened in the hospital? So those kind of questions,
Yeah,
when children start asking after these kind of homeworks, the parents is related. He said, wow, you are making my child think.
absolutely.
That's another
And
skill.
it is certainly. And Praneeth, you have the last word. And then if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them. Praneeth, as a student, okay, you've shared your experience and you know what you want to do, your aspirations. If you had one word of advice for a counselor on what you wish was done through that process, or what do you think students think of, or what is their mindset? Because right now we are speculating, oh, students are overwhelmed, etc. But what is the actual student mindset when you have so many options? How are you thinking about this whole thing? Like, what's your perspective?
Something I mentioned earlier as well. I just want to do what I want to do. I don't want to be pushed around by someone telling me that you should do this to get into college or do that. I just want to be me, and that's what counselors should realize. And if I'm interested in music or community service, counselors should find opportunities in those areas, not just doing research and doing internships that won't actually help me as a person. I don't think that is worth it.
That is very powerful. Brief but very powerful words. Thank you for that, Praneeth. And on a parting note, anyone, absolutely, Janvi, it's not about taking off the checklist or forcing what we know down the student's throat, because we really don't know much. To be very honest, the world is very, very vast and we're always, always learning. Any last questions, comments, suggestions, anything from our attendees, our participants, from our panelists, anything that you'd like to say or ask? Yashma, you unmuted
Do
yourself.
not forget to share your email IDs so we can get in touch with SLU, because there are a
Yeah.
lot of counselors, school as well as independent, and we would love to get in touch with you to know more about your experiential learning programs, online, offline, all of those.
Absolutely. Niharika, if you could just better paste that in the, yeah, that'll be great. And so, guys, these are your email IDs that you can reach out to if you want to know more about what SLU does, their phenomenal profile building programs, skill building programs. Um, Thank you all so much. And you know, if you want to get in touch with SLU, feel free to reach out. And I hear you. We want more sessions on profile building. I get it. We will do more. We'll have more conversations. It's not a one-time thing, and we'll perhaps see if we can do, you know, even more demo-oriented things. Maybe even do like a virtual walkthrough of internships and things like that. That would be awesome. Do an all-student panel. So yes, lots of ideas. Thank you all for joining. I hope this has added something to your understanding of profile building. I want to thank Jean, Deepti, Niharika, Raj, Ananya, Vibhuti, and Praneeth. All of you, thank you so much for being here today. TOC is very, very happy to have this conversation, and we're going to distribute this video. It's going to go on our YouTube channel. It's going to go out to all our members. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Bhakti. This was just wonderful conversation with you, Joy.
Thank you for being here. All right. Good night, guys. It's 8 p.m. Have a great night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.